Hey guys, Dov here, and today I'm back with a very special Total War Warhammer 2 multicast. Today we're going in with the Warriors of Chaos, Servants of the Ruinous Powers, going all in, starting with a very thematic battle against the Lizardmen. Got a Chaos, Manticore, Metal, Sorcerer, and I should mention as well, all of these replays are going to be featuring Lore of Metal, probably one of the most underrated lores of magic in the game, in my opinion. But yeah, for the spells this time, we've got Plague of Rust and Final Transmutation. Two more Manticores, both with Exalted Heroes. Technically, this is not legal in most tournament rule sets. You're limited to two of the same specific monster, but obviously these games are played on ladder, and is 3 Manticores actually really that powerful? I might argue, potentially yes, Manticores can be very cost effective, but we'll see how it plays out. We've got Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, Chosen with halberds, a couple great weapon Chaos Warriors up front, some Marauders, and Chaos Knights with the power swords. We've got some hounds, yep, just regular hounds. Yeah, regular warhounds. They're going to be catching some skink skirmishers here, not chameleon skinks. We've also got Cold One Riders, a regular Crocscore, some Saurus infantry, a light Slann here, Slann Mage Priest, a Salamander Hunting Pack, Feral Carnosaur, Cold One Riders, and some Temple Guards as well. You can see right off the bat, the Chaos Warhounds were able to come in, disrupt, do a little bit of damage to these skirmishers, but the Cold One Riders responding well there. Just the regular, non-spear version. Nice and cost-effective, especially against a lot of Chaos units. Unfortunately, there's no high Slann here. It is a light Slann, so he can't Tempest, but he can net, potentially, and use these Salamander Hunting Packs to good effect. Right now, Salamander Hunting Packs, I'm not sure if they're turned off fire at will, but they could absolutely be roasting these Marauder Horsemen right now if they, had the proper targeting order, but it looks like for the time being just chilling back. The Crocscores are going to run in here, try and get some good anti-infantry damage done. The Marauder Horsemen will pull up point blank and start to chuck their axes into those Crocscores. Likewise, the two 3-man scores rather going to dive down all in this one pocket, try and really just do a lot of damage. And finally, the Salamander Hunting Pack is going to start unloading, directly targeting the Chaos Metal Sorcerer on the Manticore. Very good target, but he then throws down a Final Transmutation. Unfortunately, does not catch these Salamander Hunting Packs, which definitely would have been nice, but as it is, the Manticore is going to go all in, trying to finish off the Slann. Probably could have peeled one of these Manticores off to just hit on the Salamander Hunting Pack, just to kind of force them away, do a little bit of DPS, but he's also got the Chosen with halberds here, Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, so should be pretty good. Meanwhile, the Chaos Knights with power swords are doing their best to kind of clean up these periphery units. They're also distracting this Feral Carnosaur somewhat, as it kind of chases these hounds, decides instead to go after the Chaos Knights, kind of wasting a little bit of time there. The Slann's also taking a lot of damage, which is great, but an overcast net here is going to pin in quite a few of these Chaos units, including both of the Exalted Heroes. It's going to then lead to them getting somewhat surrounded by the Cold One Riders, although they were able to get some contact on those Salamanders, take out a few models there, and then the Chaos Knights come from the other side. The Carnosaur is doing damage to them, but single entities can't really tie units like this down. They can't hold them in place very effectively, so with the Manticore also dropping down, a nice quick tear out on those Salamander Hunting Packs, but he is obviously in a very risky position with this Feral Carnosaur right here. The Chaos Knights are going to need to try and screen that out if they can. Looks like, unfortunately the Metal Sorcerer getting caught up in some Crocscores as they rout, but then the Exalted Hero comes in to spring him loose. So pretty good stuff there. Chaos Warriors with great weapons trading against Temple Guard is very cost effective for the Warriors with great weapons. They're probably one of the best, one of the only good, I should say, mid-tier great weapon units. They are very, very strong just in terms of their stats in general. Generally, great weapons are not that great, pun intended, of an upgrade over shielded units for the most part. Even in this build with Plague of Rust, there's an argument to be made that the armor piercing of these throwing axes could be traded out for just javelins, although the throwing axe horsemen do have missile block chance, so I do kind of get that. A little bit of extra spend. Likewise, the Chosen with halberds, you could argue you should take shields instead because of the Plague of Rust, but because, you only have the one Plague of Rust, you can't have it everywhere at the same time. It does make sense to at least have some armor-piercing units, certainly. And the Chaos Warriors with great weapons are very cost-effective armor-piercing. Absolutely. Useful in a myriad of situations, so yeah, the Poison Warhounds, unfortunately, are regular Warhounds, getting routed away by the Cold One Riders. Nice Shem's Burning Gaze there from the Slann Mage Priest. He's still fighting. Balance power still very close. And the Chaos Knights, although they are very powerful, are few in number, so just getting swarmed by a bunch of Lizardmen units here, not doing too hot. And this Feral Carnosaur is also very healthy, which, yeah, if the Metal Sorcerer wants to try and dive down, will be a big problem, but these two Chosen with Halberds are both still very healthy. That's providing a lot of this balance of power backbone for the Warriors of Chaos here, not to mention all these Marauder Horsemen as well, and some Infantry Marauders helping to clean up some of those Saurus. Infantry Marauders pretty fast, 35 speed, certainly faster than Saurus 31. Not by much, but every little bit helps. And the Horsemen pulling up into range here. We've got the Chosen with Halberds engaged on some Croc scores. I mean, the Lizardmen don't really have much choice but to fight these Chosen with Halberds eventually, and they don't really have any good tools for fighting them. In terms of, like, Saurus Warriors with shields can actually beat Chosen with Halberds with the right set of buffs, particularly if you go Lord of Heavens, Curse of the Midnight Wind, plus Harmonic Convergence. If I remember right, it probably not always will be a Chosen with Halberds, but you can pretty decisively, you know, trade there in terms of cost with Saurus one-on-one versus Chosen with Halberds. But here instead, with the Light Slon having more of the, you know, kind of control and buff-oriented build with just the Magic Missile, that Banishment, unfortunately, wasn't quite the contact that he needed, and as things start to drag on, yeah, I mean, these Chosen, this unit still has, what, 47 unit models here, so despite the fact that all the Manticores are basically done, I think the Metal Sorcerer actually met his end. I'm not sure. Don't see the big Manticore bird body anywhere, so anyway, the Exalted Heroes, of course, though, this one at least will hold leadership together, so we've got a few replays to get through. We're going to fast forward a little bit through this end game kite as Lizardmen try and use up the rest of their ammo on those Skink Skirmishers. Definitely a good play there. Trying to avoid those Chosen with Halberds as much as they can, but like I said, eventually they have no choice but to engage here. Chosen with Halberds are absolutely a scary unit that you do not want to mess with. I talk about Chosen with shields and how I prefer them a lot, but Chosen with Halberds absolutely a lot more self-reliant. They don't necessarily need the buffs. Their melee defense is a little bit lower, and they are a little bit more expensive, so they're not as cost-effective in a lot of situations, but certainly here they're going to be able to most likely carry this game. Let's keep it in fast forward as the Lizardmen try and continue kiting a little bit. Eventually, though, the Slon gets separated from the rest of the pack here. A pack herd? I'm not really sure. Is it a pack of lizards? A herd of lizards? It must be a pack. There are no actual pack reptiles or, you know, kind of social reptiles in our world, though, right? So I don't really know what the correct term would be. Anyway. Yeah, and eventually the Carnosaur also gets isolated. These Marauder Horsemen playing a key role in kind of isolating different units here. Lizardman player is going to throw in the towel, but very nice, nicely done by the Norm. He's the one that sent in all of these replays, so we're going to be taking a look at them. Yeah, Chosen with Halberds, like I said, a little more self-reliant than Chosen with shields against the big monsters. Absolutely paid for themselves and helped carry the game here. The Manticores did a good job, although I wouldn't say they were amazing, which is why I think, you know, the triple Manticore, although I do think that the tournament rule is appropriate. Like I said, on ladder, it's really not that big of a deal, to be honest. Yeah, the Chaos Knights, 63 kills there. They did get kind of isolated at a certain point, but just keeping a lot of those units zoned away, especially that Feral Carnosaur. Like, if that Carnosaur was there when all three of the Exalted Heroes were making their initial dive, you know, working on those Croc scores and other units, it definitely could have been much worse for them. But anyway, we've got a few replays to get to, like I mentioned, so let's move on. Next up, we've got one of my favorite legendary lords, the ever-present, ever-watcher, Big Bird himself, Sartharael, the OG metal caster alongside Balthazar Gelt, the only two legendary lords that have access to the lore of metal, at least for the time being. That may change, you know, possibly in the future, even in Game 3, I don't really know. To be honest, I'm not really big up on the lore to know if any other legendary lords use that lore, but anyway, here we are, Sartharael. He's also got a Shaggoth. We've got more power swords, a couple throwing axes, this time shielded Chosen, along with the Mirror Guard, wanting to deflect some of that elf bowfire. Alariel the Radiant plus a Star Dragon up in the air. We've got two Noble Chariots, so this automatically qualifies as a meta build. Chaos Warhounds. We've got Silver Helms, Spearmen, and Archers. So yeah, it's an elf build. It's a high elf build. Like I said, this is basically the meta, is to bring Alariel, Star Dragon, two Noble Chariots. Noble Chariots are already coming over to start working on some of these Chaos Marauders here. Those will be okay targets, but they do have to be careful not to get caught out by these Chaos Knights here. Also, the two single entities kind of protecting on this flank as well. So as Chaos advances, They'll be able to do well. We've got, yeah, the Poison Warhounds, regular Warhounds over here, just kind of mirroring, staying a good distance away from those various units, but potentially Norman can get, like, kind of caught, try and catch, rather, some of these Silver Helms and Nobles here. We'll see. The Hounds may end up just getting caught and sacrificed, which, you know, they're not too expensive, so it's not the worst thing in the world. The rest of these forces advancing here, kind of free of the you know, harassment of the Noble Chariots, which obviously, like, if they're coming in, going after the Chosen or other units, granted, is a lot more protection here, but still. Vance is going to be nice and patient, trying to keep everything together as much as possible. The Marauder Horsemen and Throwing Axes staying well out of range of the Archers, which is definitely a good play, despite their missile block chance. You don't want to necessarily just be taking free damage there, and they will be probably necessary to take down the Star Dragon, or even these Silver Helms. They're unshielded, right? So those Throwing Axes could generate excellent value shooting there. So like we're going to have a side breath attack on those Mirror Guard. Star Dragon's breath attack is much better used point blank against single entities, but it will do some okay damage there. Nothing too extreme, but the Mirror Guard do make frontal contact there. The Star Dragon and Alariel now going to be charging in. Of course, the Mirror Guard won't rout, but some heavy shock damage and rear charge like this, I mean, they won't get terrified. They might just straight up rout, though, from all that damage. Over here on the far side, though, you can see big problems for the High Elves, as both of the Noble Chariots getting caught up by these mobile, hard-hitting Chaos units. Nice Final Transmutation had been cast as well, and both of them getting terrified. At least the one getting terrified, the other one is now recovering. Warhounds and Poison Warhounds going to be catching them and slowing them down, so that then, you know, like I said, all these heavy hitters can come finish them off, and a great job using these Poison Warhounds to chase that Noble off the field so that it cannot be healed by Alariel. Obviously, the Noble Chariots, a lot of their power comes from the fact that they're just ridiculously tanky and can be healed. If they are, you know, I should say they are ridiculously tanky if they are healed. That's a little bit more appropriate. Anyway, Silver Helms pushing up and around the flank here. The Throwing Axes have been trying to go after the Star Dragon, but without much avail. But you can see, even on a nice side charge there with the Shielded Chosen, because they have such high melee defense, the Star Dragon really doesn't do all that much damage. Some of the models are able to resist the attacks there. You know, depending on RNG. And over here, same thing. Chosen with their massive missile block chance and massive melee defense. I mean, even the ROR Spears only have 33 melee attacks, so they are absolutely going to be at minimum base chance to hit against those Chosen there. And yeah, the Noble Chariots have both been dealt with quickly out of the gate, which is awesome to see. I am not the biggest fan of Noble Chariots, considering they're chariots that can consistently beat certain single entities and, you know, cavalry units, even elite cavalry units oftentimes. Yeah, nice to see them gone very quickly in the battle. Alariel's going to throw a Phos Protection to try and buff up the melee defense and armor, up to 110 armor, 78 melee defense on that Star Dragon. It's definitely going to be a tough cookie, so to speak. Giant tough cookie. Blueberry, most likely, or I don't know. Let's not go there. Anyway, Poison Warhounds, yeah. That Noble Chariot isn't been chased off, but he's taking consistent hits and he's not coming back, which is very important. It does mean that if the High Elves wanted to try and save him, which might be worthwhile, they would have to peel off these single entities and go back. It's more or less going to sacrifice all of these Spearmen. And, you know, Silver Helms and other units that are still trying to fight here. I say trying because the majority of them are, in fact, just running away. Chaos Knights coming around, getting a great kind of cleanup situation here in the back line, able to really accentuate that routing. Star of Averlorn comes in, better late than never, I suppose, but Alariel's getting whacked by both Big Bird and the Shaggoth here, even though she's kind of sitting under the Star Dragon's wing. They're both focused primarily on her and not on the Star Dragon. She's a lot squishier than the Star Dragon. Once she's gone, then the big boy can't be healed, right? So, good targeting there, kind of targeting priority, getting rid of the important units first, and then allowing the kind of elite infantry to just grind things down, take the hits. Even the, you know, Chaos Knights with power swords, the regular Chaos Knights, they're basically mounted Chosen, right? So, really like that a lot. It's going to pull out a quick victory there, and yeah, that's a really good Chaos build, honestly. Like, this is probably something that I would take against the High Elves. Yeah, I might try and wiggle some things around, potentially. You could even, if you didn't want to go with any infantry, bring a second Shaggoth, or not any infantry necessarily, but just like all Marauders, basically. But this gives you a little bit more staying power in the front line. Those Chosen racking up a ton of kills. 92 there, 73, and 53 for the Chaos Knights. Also, again, basically mounted Chosen. Dragon over Shaggoth got a Chevron from whacking it high-value single entities, and Big Bird also putting in some really good work It's an absolute powerhouse in a multitude of matchups. And yeah, great job taking out the Noble Chariots, taking out the Star Dragon, and just generally shutting down this very quote-unquote meta, in my opinion, really boring high elf build, even though it is very strong, don't get me wrong. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next replay. And we're here once again with Big Bird, this time facing off against my beloved Empire, and this build looks a little bit familiar, I have to say. We've got a General of the Empire up in the air, Grey Wizard here, a couple of Flagellants, Felix on the ground somewhere. Yep, hidden in the Sigmar Suns. We've also got some Demigryph Knights, and yeah, Pistoliers. So I'm not saying that I inspired this build or made it up, but it definitely seems like a build I would take. I definitely have used this combo, yeah, General of the Empire, Grey Wizard, and Felix before, so interesting stuff for the Warriors side. Big Bird, of course, rocking Final Transmutation, does have some Searing Doom there. We'll see if that gets used at all. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, we've also got Poison Warhounds, Chosen, and Marauders as well. So, yeah, pretty good builds on both sides. We'll see how it works. Right now, the Hounds are pushing up very aggressively. These Spearmen are able to kind of block up one of the units here somewhat, although you can see how the mass of the Hounds, they're able to mostly just pull through without taking much damage there at all. Able to get on those Pistoliers and start to isolate them. Demigryph Knights coming through, though, pushing those Hounds back. Meanwhile, the frontline engagement not quite underway yet. We'll see kind of how this ends up going. Yeah, for the Poison Warhounds over here, they're going to have a really hard time, obviously, against the Demis. These are the Lance Demis with the full 60 charge bonus, getting a little bit of poison there. But even over here, like pushing away these Pistoliers, they are going to get shot up in the face somewhat. Well, that's not necessarily the best, but definitely keeping those Pistoliers away, you know, from your Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, for example, could potentially be very important. Here comes the Juiced General, probably going to pop all of his buffs and try and come down and goon Sarthrel here. Looks like he does get on the ground. Sarthrel, yep, gets all the buffs, or the General does rather, the Stand Your Ground, Runefang, Foe Seeker, Charm, Shield. There goes the Helping Hands. Nope, not Helping Hands yet, but it does look like Overcast, Final Transmutation. I don't see any spells from the Lore of Shadows. It does look like we have Enfeebling Foe there, but yeah, Felix is not actually in range to give the Helping Hands, so a little bit of a wasted power spike right there. He was able to get some damage done against Sarthrel, but Sarthrel is definitely very, very squishy. Meanwhile, over here, these Demigryph Knights kind of getting a little bit outnumbered here by these Marauder Horsemen. They're getting bogged down and kind of axes thrown at them. They are doing some damage, but the Hounds are also coming in, and now the Shaggoths here as well. This is definitely going to be a bad situation for these Demigryph Knights here, as they just get completely outnumbered. They will get some damage done, but yeah, not the best. Over here, these Marauders get terrified away. Flagellant's doing a great job cleaning up. And over here in the front line, yeah, Penumbral Pendulum are going to be used. All these Chaos units have mostly lost out. I mean, the Chosen are doing very well in the front line against those veteran Spearmen, but they'll be able to hold out. But nice Demigryph Knight. Rear charge incoming. Felix can also come do some anti-infantry armor-piercing damage, so although Chosen with shields, one of the best units in the game, in my opinion, probably one of the best infantry units at least, they're going to take a nasty charge there from those Demigryph Knights, so pretty good stuff. Meanwhile, General of the Empire is taking a lot of throwing axe fire. He does have to be careful. The available healing from Felix is relatively slow, and he does need to be, you know, standing near Felix while Felix is in melee, so there's kind of some conditions that have to be met there. Pistoliers coming up, they're going to start to pepper some fire in on these Marauder Horsemen, hopefully dealing some good damage there, but yeah, the Grey Wizard potentially could be a nasty, in for a nasty surprise, rather. Felix also, again, not in melee. Felix really should just rear charge these Chosen right here. Then the General of the Empire, he could even charge down into the Chosen, but he doesn't even have to. He can just sit up in the air. It looks like he's going to charge down anyway, but he could definitely be getting some trickle healing from Felix if Felix was involved with this fight with the Chosen here. So a little bit of a mistake by the Empire player, but it looks like he's trying to correct that. Felix coming back over, and the Dragon Orc Shaggoth and Sarthrel are going to try and interrupt him from doing so. Meanwhile, these Marauders still holding out, just wet noodling veteran Spearmen there. Pistoliers, again, drawing away some of the Chosen this time. They're way out of position, and the Chaos Poison Warhounds. We'll see if that Chosen positioning mistake ends up costing him too severely, but here, General of the Empire gets caught out by the Shaggoth. He's taking some throwing axe fire. It does look like he's going to get all the buffs once again. This time, no Helping Hands, though. Again, the ward save only 22%. That's 66% from the Helping Hands not being popped there, and that damage resistance definitely would have helped. Fortunately, because of some missteps there, that juiced general does end up getting absolutely killed here by the Shaggoth and Sarthrel. That being said, the rest of the Empire forces are doing pretty well. We've got, still some Pistoliers, although they are out of ammo. Some of the infantry's holding out. These full health Flagellants just about. The Tattersoul's doing a great job. And of course, the Demigryph Knights, one unit still with quite a bit of stopping power left. The throwing axes are also getting low-ish on ammunition, so if these Pistoliers can come forward, continue to pressure, maybe draw out some of their ammo, using these Pistoliers to chase like routing Marauders, definitely very cost-effective. Felix, though, getting him isolated and caught out like this, again, a pretty big mistake. These heroic units needed to be fighting together for the portion of the battle, and instead they kind of got separated. Felix going to try and turn tail and run there, but of course Big Bird and the Shaggoth both very fast, going to be able to catch him relatively easily. Balance power still dead even, though, as it looks like the Shadow Wizard, the Grey Wizard here, Mr. Gandalf's going to be the next target. They didn't quite want to finish off Felix there. As a foot character, he can sometimes get knocked around a little bit and be a little bit hard to take down, but looks like Enfeebling Foe once again on the Shaggoth, significantly debuffing his stats. But yeah, poor Felix, man, just getting absolutely bullied by these big monsters, knocked around constantly. Pistoliers pull up, so for some point-blank fire, but with 70 armor, the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and plus the missile resistance as well, we'll be able to shrug off a good amount of that damage. And yeah, Pistoliers over here completely out of ammo. They could even charge in, try and grab these Marauder Horsemen and pin them in place, and then use the Demigryph Knights to rear charge, but instead they actually go after these Poison Warhounds, which they might be able to win out this engagement. They're going to take a lot of damage, certainly, but I think fixing all these Horsemen and charging them with the Demigryph Knights, you could have potentially caught like that entire blob. And at the very least, when they're pulling away from those Pistoliers, they'll be taking free damage. But he does manage to rout the Poison Warhounds, although it does cost the Demigryph Knights somewhat as they're taking that throwing axe fire to the face. Felix is still doing all right. He's taken a bit of damage, but he's now moving through to start blending up what's left of this infantry. But man, this full health unit of Chosen is going to be tough to take down. We'll see what the Empire can do about that. And Big Bird pushing through. Yeah, the Grey Wizard getting terrified away. The State Troop Spearmen, the Veterancy will definitely come into play here as they fight against these big scary monsters in the late game. This is a great situation, though. These Tattersouls, because of their extra models, and with the fact that when they're losing, they actually get a little bit of a damage buff, they are going to come in here. They do get that Strength of the Penitent, which gives them a little bit of extra melee defense and physical resistance with 49 attack as well. They actually make some okay contact with these Chosen, not to mention a timely rear charge from some Pistoliers, and actually using these two units in tandem here is paying off quite nicely. Final Transmutation, though, being used on those Demigryph Knights to finish off their unit models, and as more and more of the elites of the Empire go down, they're going to have a harder time cleaning up the big monsters, in particular the Shaggoth and Sarthrel. Although it is still certainly very close, the State Troop Spearmen, the Veterans, will continue to hold out. But yeah, Felix now going to get a bunch of throwing axes to the face. I don't know how accurate these are, if they'll actually do all that much damage to him, but it does look like a little bit of DPS gets put in. And certainly anything they can do to try and damage Felix without engaging him in melee will be very important, because obviously, if you engage him in melee, he'll start regenerating. But here, great use of the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes to chase Demigryph Knights off the field. And yeah, Pistoliers also, not sure what they routed from, but at this point the balance power is starting to turn in Chaos's favor, as a lot more of the units of the Empire are getting, shattered and chased off. Their killing power is really starting to evaporate. These veteran State Troop Spears are actually somehow winning against Sarthrel, but he doesn't have to stay in combat with them, right? He can come over here, stand on top of these Chosen, go fight the Flagellants, just something that's not going to be as painful as fighting those veteran Spears. Or just not even fight at all. You can just run around like a big dumb bird until the cows come home, which absolutely is another strat. But yeah, Poison Warhounds, or regular Warhounds rather, getting a nice rear charge in here. There's a handful of unbreakable Empire troops that are kind of holding this together. Felix way out of position, though, from the rest of his supporting troops. And I'm not sure, yeah, the Shaggoth is still quite healthy as well. So we'll fast forward. Got a bit more to get through today, so this late game cleanup, we pretty much know it's a lost cause for the Empire, but cool to see that Juice General build being used by somebody else. Nice to see, even if there was a couple mistakes there. The timing of all of the buffs was not quite on point, and mistiming, especially with the helping hands, it's something that I often forget to use. Just because, yeah, it's hard to remember to use it on Felix, that helping hands, but it's absolutely essential to making this work. That extra damage resistance, I mean, it's significant. It's what, 44% damage resistance? So it is absolutely significant. But for the Chaos side, Chosen with Shields, again, doing a great job here. Marauder Horsemen with Throwing Axes, also excellent in this matchup. This is just a nice build overall, to be honest. This would probably work well in a number of matchups for the Warriors of Chaos here. Yeah, for the Empire, again, I like this build quite a bit. A few mistakes in the execution, but I do think it's a potentially very powerful build. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get to the next replay. Next up comes the big boy himself, the Mountain King, the Measuring Stick, the one by which all other world beaters are compared. Kolek Suneater himself, of course. We've got him now leading this Chaos army, a Metal Manticore Sorcerer in the air, second Shaggoth. Got plenty of Chaos Marauders, warriors with great weapons. Looks like some Marauder Horsemen with Javelins. Once again, Poison Hounds out to the flanks. And yeah, that's it. Some more Chaos, this time with Kolek in the lead. And I like the hero level Chaos Sorcerer on the Manticore as well. Very cost effective. He does have the Forbidden Rod, so looking to do some self damage for extra Winds of Magic, just to try and get a few extra final transmutations, which could end up being pretty good here. They're going to be very good versus Famir Warriors. We've also got some Norscan Ice Trolls. Throg leading the way under the banner of Wintertooth. Gotten regular Norscan Trolls, Marauder Champs with great weapons, which is an interesting choice. They will trade, I don't know actually. Let's see how this trade goes. Chaos Warriors with great weapons, in my mind, would probably win this, or maybe not win, but I mean, they're just slightly worse. They might actually lose, but they're way more cost effective in this engagement. Yeah, you can see those champions, when they don't get the charge especially, the Warriors with great weapons actually may end up winning there, and that is a really cost effective engagement for them. That being said, the Norscan Marauders easily beat the Chaos Marauders, and they're going to go over there to support, so it could turn things around. Likewise, the Javelins are tossing in here, and in this big monster fight, the Shaggoths are doing okay. They're not doing great, though, and so far, like, these Norscan Ice Trolls still haven't lost any unit models, which is absolutely devastating. The Miststalkers now coming in, or, sorry, regular Famir Warriors, although the massive Overcast Final Transmutation is going to do so much damage to all of these monstrous infantry. That's actually a really good cast of that. You can see the Trolls then drop down to 6 models, basically, from that cast and from a few more hits from those monsters. Likewise, the Javelins now getting tied down by the Poison Warhounds there. The Champs here won out against that unit, but over here you can see, yeah, these Chaos Warriors traded very cost-effectively into those champions there. 34 kills, although, you know, the Marauders came in and started to swing things around, but still got a few more reserve Marauders for the Warriors of Chaos. The Javelins also moving up. Thankfully, Trolls, you know, because of their low armor, will be pretty vulnerable to the Javelins, and no Plague of Rust means that, yeah, you would need against, like, Famir, let's say, if you're trying to shoot them. I mean, Javelins still have good enough AP to do effective damage, but they really would want Plague of Rust, ideally. That being said, again, the Trolls, the Ice Wolves, even the Armored Ice Wolves, only 70 armor, really not going to do too much against the Javelin damage. They'll still do very effective damage, and here, this is a great pick, using the Manticore Sorcerer, kind of come down and just quickly hit Throg while he's isolated, using that 50 charge bonus, 445 weapon strength, and nice, fast melee attack animations. That's one of the things about Manticores that's very underrated. They have really good animations, like probably one of the best animation sets of any Game 1 monster, I would say. And as a result, this Metal Sorcerer is going to do a great job chasing Throg off here, doing a bunch of damage to him, might actually end up finishing him off. Javelins are going to try and provide some Overwatch fire, but in return, Kolek also going down on the front line to the Famir Warriors, the Skin Wolves, this massive monstrous infantry. I feel like Slade X would be proud of this Norscan build. All these Trolls, Famir, Skin Wolves. Now the second Shaggoth is surrounded, doesn't really know what to do. It looks like he might be trying to force path his way out, not doing any attack animations. But the Javelins are able to throw in here, get some good kind of fire, Overwatch fire. I don't know, these Trolls, Famir Warriors might end up routing, but that Shaggoth absolutely gets destroyed there, and that's not going to look good. Warriors of Chaos going to fall behind on the balance of power quite a bit. A lot of these units in the secondary line getting routed away. But we do still have these Chaos Marauders fighting out of the flanks here. Most of the Warriors with great weapons are gone. And Kolek himself is not done completely. He might recover his leadership. Looks like he does there. Still with less than 300 HP left. Throg is also still being chased around, just getting knocked around and bullied by this Metal Sorcerer here. I don't know if the Metal Sorcerer is able to get consistent enough attack animations to actually, you know, finish off his HP, but it looks like here, after Throg gets up, might be able to at least get a couple of good attacks. The Metal Sorcerer also being so healthy, once he comes back from chasing Throg, might be able to help clean up and terrify away a lot of these units, but there's still so much monstrous infantry left. Throg does go down very critically, though, and that is going to be a permanent leadership debuff to the Norskins rather than just, you know, if he flees, there will be a temporary leadership debuff, right? So the Norscan units trying to kind of get back together, kind of reform their lines, so to speak. You've got the Marauder Horsemen still getting consistent. Melkos mystifying miasma, which will start to strip away models eventually. It is a multi-model type spell, so it's not going to pick off models in the same way that Spirit Leech would, but it will do nice damage over time. The Javelins also just absolutely lighting up these Marauder Horsemen, doing a ton of anti-large damage. Unfortunately, they are just about out of ammo. But let's see. Kolek's back. It's not looking great, though, for the Warriors of Chaos. This massive monstrous infantry right here, and especially these trolls, they're all just standing around regenerating. And one of these units here even still has, yeah, these Norse controls still have 12 unit models, but oh goodness, here we go. Metal Sorcerer takes a very risky dive, actually forces a blob overcast and takes a bunch of damage from that, but look at the terror coming in. The overcast final transmutation as well does a ton of damage, actually picks away a good number of these models on these various units here. Even those Norscan Ice Trolls you saw just before were up to 12 models, now down to 6. Absolute brutality there. That was a nasty final transmutation, forcing that blob there from that Metal Sorcerer. The Marauder Horseman now going to come back from route. Kolek's still just chilling for the time being. He really doesn't want to try and get in combat too much if he can avoid it. Could lead to critical army losses if he does route again or even shatter. So, yeah, the Metal Sorcerer likewise took a ton of damage on that, that play there. It definitely was risky, ended up paying off for the most part, but the Norskins are still ahead on the balance of power. Kolek's force is still not feeling great about their chances here. And a lot of that is down to this one big, relatively healthy unit of Skin Wolves. They're going to charge in here and try and finish off Kolek. Will Kolek be able to survive this? He himself will get an attack. Looks like he drops a model most likely. The Manticore comes in for rear charge. Kolek does not go down, and due to the terror effect, the Skin Wolves actually getting chased away there. Now the Marauder Horsemen can chase them with their fast speed, make sure they do not come back from route, and that regeneration is all for naught. Still got a handful of champions, but at this point, the balance of power has been clawed back by the Warriors of Chaos, and they are in a pretty commanding position, despite what the balance of power is even. But I mean, can any of these units really take down this Manticore at this point? I mean, maybe, perhaps those Ice Trolls, those Norse controls, but I don't think they'll be able to recover their leadership enough without Throg on the field to come back from route. So, yep, looks like that is going to be victory for the Warriors of Chaos. A nice back and forth game there, a lot of absolute scrapping, and yeah, some really nice use of final transmutation there. I often talk about how the quote-unquote single target spells are actually best used against cavalry and monstrous infantry, and this is a great showcase of that concept. Absolutely, you can see how the blobs of monstrous infantry got wrecked by final transmutation. So, keeping that in mind, you know, if you're coming up against a faction like, let's say, Beastmen, when ogres eventually get implemented, I'd imagine it would be very good against like an ogre blob as well. Greenskins don't typically bring a ton of monstrous infantry, but Norsca you can almost guarantee will have some type of monstrous infantry. So I would say at least Beastmen and Norsca, they're going to be that will be a spell that could help you from getting just a Mino bust, so to speak, or a Famir bust. That doesn't sound the same. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the next replay. And we're back with Triple Manticore, this time against the Dark Elves, and yeah, the Dark Elves army is not exactly tournament legal either. Less than 250 unit models, I believe. Most tournament rule sets, if I remember right, are 250 to 300, maybe up to 350 minimum unit model count, and 221, unfortunately, is not that. So, yeah, neither of these builds are tournament legal. This Dark Elf build is actually a very haggard, not very good, in my opinion, kite build. We've got a Dreadlord Sword and Crossbow up in the air, a bunch of Scourge Runner Chariots, we've got Slaanesh Harvesters, 2 units of Cold One Knights, a couple Harpies, and that's it. As for the Warriors of Chaos, the 3 Manticores, obviously with the Metal Sorcerer leading the way, Marauder Horse Masters, we've also got, what is that, Chosen with Great Weapons, Mirror Guard, more Chosen with Great Weapons, and some Chaos Marauders. And you can see right off the bat that the reason I say this kite is haggard and not very good is because, one, it doesn't have any Dark Riders with repeater crossbows. It's not wide enough, and those two things are somewhat related, right? If you were to like even just cut these 2 Cold One Knights and bring, you know, up to 3 to 4 Dark Riders with repeater crossbows, that would actually be really strong. Over here, the Dreadlord gets caught out in the air by the 3 single entities of the yeah, of the Warriors of Chaos here. It looks like we are going to see Final Transmutation. That's going to go down and do a ton of damage to the Sorceress and the Harpies. Or no, that is a Soul Stealer, duh. By the, by who? Soul Stealer? Oh, yeah, Slaanesh Harvesters, obviously, duh. Yeah, the Hound's getting routed away there, and you can see the Dark Elf player definitely focusing on trying to take out the mobility, but we still got Poison Warhounds over here continuously harassing those chariots. Because of this big impassable terrain block here, that's also going to block a lot of the Dark Elves' attempted kite. And even at that, these, Cold One Knights, Slaanesh Harvesters, just staying in combat for way too long here. And now here comes the Final Transmutation. Overcast Final Transmutation going to do a ton of damage to that Dreadlord with Sword and Crossbow. This is another reason why this build is kind of haggard and bad. To be honest, any dragon besides Malekith, or any Dark Elf dragon, Lord besides Malekith, or even Lokir is not great. He's okay. Malekith is really the only one I think you would want to bring in multiplayer unless you're really trying to meme. This guy has no healing, less HP, less stats. He does have a crossbow, but that didn't use any of the ammo there, so basically no value. As for the rest, these Scourge Runner Chariots eventually going to be caught up by Horse Masters. Horse Masters do have good enough stats to actually beat Scourge Runners in melee. I mean, they have, what, slightly less... slightly more attack and defense, actually. That extra armor also helps against the melee attacks, and just in general, Horse Masters are going to be a great unit for shutting down these Scourge Runner Chariots, both in melee and, they can also throw their javelins as they pursue as well. Likewise, the Manticore, Exalted Hero, pretty fast. He is getting lit up a little bit by those chariots, the Scourge Runner Chariots, but all the chariots, let's see, 3 unit models there, 3 unit models there. This one's down to 2, so some of the killing power has been stopped, but this is potentially a mistake by this Supreme Sorceress. She dives in here on her little fancy Dark Pegasus. She's going to cast a Spirit Leech, but yeah, she also probably takes a few friendly attacks and then immediately gets terrified off the side by the Exalted Hero. So definitely another questionable play there. This Exalted Hero might end up going down to the Scourge Runner Chariots, but they are basically out of ammo, right? And there's still so much Chaos Infantry here. I guess the idea is you just use the ammo to take out all the large, and in theory, these chariots should be able to beat all of the infantry in theory, but without any leadership, without any support of any kind, they eventually will just be cornered and taken out. On a map like this especially, they're kind of boxing themselves in pretty badly. They're up in the corner now. They've got this impassable terrain piece, and so Chaos has a few units here to kind of occupy this area and disrupt this space. Granted, they can't really stand and fight, but they're doing some great skirmishing right now, getting those Cold One Knights and Slaanesh Harvesters. So, yeah, it's a good situation to be in for the Warriors of Chaos. They have a very commanding lead on the balanced power, and I definitely agree with that. So we are going to fast forward a little bit as these chariots continue to chase. Marauder Horse Masters continuing to kite. Another Final Transmutation there. Not overcast this time, just regular. Probably trying to avoid miscasting and blowing up the Metal Sorcerer. But yeah, all the infantry are just kind of standing over there, which is fine. The Cold One Knights get caught way out of position. Again, pretty big mistake by the player attempting to kite here. They were attempting to kite, now they're being kited, because that's just how this game works sometimes, right? But we'll continue to fast forward. Eventually, the Hounds will start to catch things up, and yeah, it's just going to run into an army losses situation. Once those Scourge Runner Chariots run out of ammunition, they can't kill 2 full health Chosen with Great Weapons, the Mirror Guard, and a bunch of Marauders, plus the Horse Masters bogging them down constantly. There's just no way. So yeah, Norm's able to take home one more victory there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this Warriors of Chaos multicast. Kind of some different builds that he was up against, utilizing that Lore of Metal very effectively. Final Transmutation, it's not nearly as brokenly overpowered as it has been at certain points in the past, but it is still a strong spell. It's probably the best, direct damage, quote-unquote, single target spell, in my opinion, mostly because of the AoE, but it also has a little bit faster DPS rate as well than something like Spirit Leech, for example. It does more DPS. I believe it's actually straight up double the DPS of something like Spirit Leech or Arcane and Forging. So yeah, nice to see that done. We didn't see any Searing Dooms, which is a little bit unfortunate. I do like that spell quite a bit. I talk about it pretty often. I just want to do a quick kind of test for you guys if I can. Let's see, we're on Glacial Lake. Let's go with, let's just do this. Let's go Warriors of Chaos. I'm going to bring a Metal Manticore Sorcerer up in the air just so that I can cast that from safety. We're going to bring, hopefully the AI will actually play ball here. Let's just bring regular Lord, the idea here is I want to show you guys how it does against heavy cavalry. So we're going to use Chaos Knights, the power swords. So they'll be able to hold out against each other for a decent amount of time, I hope, because of their high melee defense. We'll see. I actually didn't try this test beforehand, but just from my own anecdotal experience, I know that Searing Doom can be surprisingly effective against heavy cavalry. So let's go ahead and charge in here. Get this guy going forward. And yeah, Gehenna's Golden Hounds, I would recommend this against light horde factions, which is basically like Skaven, or sometimes against the Wood Elves it can be good as well. Other than that, I really wouldn't take it too much. Glittering Robe, it was, yeah, AoE, which I believe the Overcast actually does give it an AoE. It's plus 60 armor and an AoE is actually quite a bit. I could see that being useful in some circumstances. It's not wildly useful. Transmutation of Lead is great for countering enemy attack buffs, like if you're up against the Greenskins, for example, you can use it as a localized kind of counter-wah. But anyway, let's go ahead and get these guys engaged here. We'll get them nice and blobbed up, and then let's go ahead and throw this bombardment spell down. Hopefully the AI doesn't try and pull away like it sometimes does, but it looks like we are going to get contact, and you can see how much damage that does even to a very heavily armored elite cavalry, and considering how cheap of a spell Searing Doom is, it is very, very worth bringing, in my opinion, in any matchup where you think you're going to be facing elite cavalry. So go ahead and throw down one more final transmutation here, just to kind of finish off this multicast set of replays. The Metal Sorcerer as well for multiplayer has to be one of my favorite looking generic lords. Like, I don't know why that hood with the like weird mask looking thing looks so cool in my opinion. Like this red hood with the gold accents, it actually looks very classy. His staff as well with the like wheel and the like scythe attached, it's just great aesthetic, to be honest. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.